Welcome to Off the Grid, a podcast for small business owners who want to leave social media without losing all their clients.
Let's go off the grid. Okay. Let's go off the grid. Okay. I know that you really want to put your phone away. Yeah. Let's go off the grid.
Hi there, Off the Grid listener. Amelia here. I am the founder of Software Sounds Podcast Studio and the host of this here show that you have tuned into today. And I am checking in between seasons. We are not currently in season. This is a special bonus episode because I wanted to pull an episode out from behind the scenes at the Clubhouse and share it here on our public feed just for you. So today I am sharing our Clubhouse exclusive episode, WTF is happening on LinkedIn, and why I left the platform after 14 years. So in this episode, I unpack LinkedIn's evolution from its launch in 2002 to its present day status with 1 billion users and a fully fledged suite of tools for content creators. And I talk about how I think that the platform has shifted from being a social networking site to a social media platform and what that's meant for users on the platform and just for like the overall vibe of the space. So you'll hear me talk a little bit about LinkedIn Top Voices program, how thought leadership has really been warped and watered down by the quote unquote LinkedIn cringe voice, and so much more. And if you like this episode, I would love if you would join the Off the Grid Clubhouse, because this episode was originally recorded as an exclusive for Clubhouse members. And if you join the Clubhouse, then you will get episodes like this every week for the whole summer. And the best news is it only costs $5 a month or $50 a year. So head to the show notes to learn more about the Clubhouse and to join today to keep getting great episodes like this one while the show is off season and beyond. And for now, let's go ahead and dive into this episode all about everybody's favorite resume platform, LinkedIn. Hello, 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 and welcome back to the Off the Grid Clubhouse. I'm Amelia Ruby, and I am so pumped that you, yourself and you, are here to hear me talk all about LinkedIn. As a friendly reminder, these episodes are exclusively for members of our paid Substack community. And if you're listening to this, but not hanging out in the comments with us, I do invite you to join us. There have been some really great conversations happening on our July Biz Forecast episode, on our Summer Slowdown episode, basically on every episode. Folks are chiming in, sharing their thoughts, and it's been a good time. So you're welcome to do whatever you want, but just know that the Clubhouse is the episodes and the comment threads, so you're welcome to partake in both. Now, today's episode is all about LinkedIn, or as I'm calling it, what the fuck is happening on LinkedIn, and why I left the platform after 14 years. If you've pressed play on this episode, I am assuming that you know what LinkedIn is, but if you do not, it is a website where you can share a digital version of your resume and or work history and connect with other people that you have professional relationships with. At least that's how it started. When I joined LinkedIn in 2010, it was a glorified digital resume plus Rolodex. Like you could put your resume on there and it would make you a little online profile, and then you could send connection requests to people that you had worked with. And that's about all it did, or all I remember it doing back in 2010 when I joined. And then over the past 14 years, I have watched LinkedIn transform pretty dramatically and become way more than that digital resume plus Rolodex site. So in this episode, I'm going to talk a little bit about that transformation. I have, in fact, done a little bit of research to talk about how the site has grown over the years. And then I'm going to share how I think LinkedIn used to kind of live and die by the distinction between social networking platform and social media platform, and then how I believe it's become a full-fledged social media platform in the past few years, and how that led to my exit from the space this spring. So now it's time to strap into our off-the-grid Clubhouse hot tub time machine, and we are going to go back to the year of our goddess 2002 when LinkedIn was founded. So LinkedIn was founded in 2002 by Reid Hoffman and Eric Lai, some tech dudes. They founded the company. And within 2 years, it had reached 1 million users. And LinkedIn saw its first month of profitability in 2006. In 2007, it reached 10 million users. And then in 2008, it launched targeted advertising. Now, at this stage, LinkedIn was still largely that digital resume plus Rolodex feature. People were sharing their work history, their present work status, and connecting with other folks that they had professional affiliations. The introduction of targeted advertising saw the company and the platform grow. And then really by 2011, they had moved into the recruiter space when they launched the Apply with LinkedIn feature. So in 2011, they launched this feature where you can apply to a job simply with your LinkedIn profile, or you can attach your LinkedIn profile to a job in place of a resume. And I remember applying to jobs and internships coming out of college with this feature. I definitely was using my LinkedIn resume to apply to things. I was finding jobs on the platform. I was submitting my resume through it. And I honestly probably even got one of my college internships that way. I can't quite remember, but I really feel like when I did social media for a nonprofit in college, one of the reasons they thought I was good at it was because I applied through LinkedIn, and that was like a brand new thing to them at the time. So also in 2011, LinkedIn moved into Facebook's space and launched their social news platform called LinkedIn Today. So that really started as this sort of like content aggregator that collected articles and things that members were sharing. And then you could kind of customize it to see the things that only your connections were sharing, things that were in a certain industry or a location, etc. And when they launched LinkedIn Today, it was pulling a lot of outside content onto the site. And as we've seen with every other social media platform, they don't really want you going elsewhere. They don't really want to emphasize content that's happening in other spaces. So it does not surprise me that then in 2012, LinkedIn launched their influencer program. So starting in fall 2012, you could apply to become a LinkedIn influencer. And LinkedIn influencers at the beginning were all thought leaders. People who self-identified as thought leaders. They did their TV interviews, they did their TED Talks, and their work and their posts, the content that they were creating for the site got boosted by LinkedIn and really grew their platform and their audience. And I will link to a post in the show notes that I found with someone who was one of the early influencers and talked about how much becoming a LinkedIn influencer boosted their content numbers, well beyond what they were doing before they got that accepted to that program. So definitely there we are kind of working in the world of platforms courting influencers, kind of crowning their top influencers, and then promoting those people's content, as we've seen again on all of these other platforms, Instagram, TikTok, etc. Now, I don't want to give you a literal play-by-play of everything that's happened at LinkedIn over the past decade. Doesn't really seem worthwhile to me personally, but you might want to know that in 2016, Microsoft acquired LinkedIn for over $26 billion, which maybe I knew at some point, but I had totally forgot that LinkedIn was owned by Microsoft. And then in late 2023, this is just late last year, LinkedIn reached 1 billion members. So even though I was hesitant to do an episode on LinkedIn, does anybody who listens to this podcast care about LinkedIn? Also, 1 billion people are on LinkedIn. It is a huge platform. And so I'm sure that many, if not most of you listening, have a LinkedIn account. And I'm sure that some of you actively use yours to promote and share things for your business. So I would love to know in the comments, are you on LinkedIn? What do you use it for? Tell me where you stand in the LinkedIn timeline. When did you join? How long have you been there? What are you doing there? And as you reflect on those questions, I'm going to take you into how I think LinkedIn became social media. As I've said a couple times already, I think that when it started, LinkedIn was a digital resume and Rolodex. And back then, I would have categorized it as a social networking platform, which is a platform that is based on allowing individuals to connect and create relationships. And I think that those platforms are very community focused, and they tend to kind of create hubs around common interests or locations or industries. So, I think LinkedIn started this way. We could also think about spaces like Discord, which I think is definitely a social networking platform, or something like Meetup, which I think is a social networking platform, or even at this point, maybe something like Yelp is a social networking platform. Maybe it's social media. I don't know. Do I have any gold star Yelpers out there? Is that a thing? Can you be a gold star Yelper? There's a name for that, isn't there? But anyway, to repeat, a social network is a space that prioritizes relationships. It's a platform that allows people to connect and interact based on those shared affinities. In contrast, a social media platform is a site that allows users to create, share, and consume content in order to build an audience. So on a social networking platform, typically you know the people that you're engaging with, or you're there to get to know them, to create those relationships. But on a social media platform, you're there to grow an audience. And so it's much more of a broadcast platform. You have a profile and you broadcast your updates from there, and other people can follow and consume those updates and the content that you create, which is different than a social networking platform where you may have a profile, but you're going to these different community spaces to have a conversation, not just to broadcast what's up in your world, right? So social media sites are often about sharing text, photos, videos, links. You can schedule posts. You're making posts to begin with, right? And there are some social networking features built into social media sites, right? You have DMs where you can have a direct conversation with one or a group of people on a social media site like Instagram. But I think that one of the things that you really see with social media platforms is the emphasis on the user profile and on the one-to-many relationship. Whereas with social networking sites, I think you see more of an emphasis on the community gathering space and on one-to-one or group conversations. So as I've been explaining this, you might have been starting to track the ways that LinkedIn has morphed from a social networking platform to a social media site. Because when LinkedIn was just that digital resume plus Rolodex, it was much more about maintaining relationships. Even when it had a feed that you could go to see other people's updates and comment on them, I still think it was foregrounding the relational aspect of networking. But over the past few years, I think that LinkedIn has shifted from foregrounding that resume Rolodex network functionality into making the feed the most important part of the site and encouraging people to become LinkedIn-specific content creators. And so one of the ways that they did this is that in 2022, they transitioned their influencer program into their top voice program. So this is where they started to emphasize those thought leaders, those top voices, and give them even more platform power, by which I mean boosting their posts, giving them access to new features. LinkedIn has also launched creator mode, where they are giving users access to tools like newsletters and live video broadcasts, as well as analytics to see how their posts are performing. And so now we see headlines like this one that I found in Essence that I'll link to in the show notes that say things like, LinkedIn has quietly become the GOAT for content creators. Here's why you shouldn't overlook it any longer. The platform has long been thought of as a job seeker's tool, but it has fast become a content creator's playground. And honestly, I would agree. I think that by introducing all of these features, LinkedIn has courted a specific type of content creator who is making content about professions or job searching or careers or entrepreneurship. And it's inviting people in those spaces to come to LinkedIn and make content for LinkedIn. And then for users, whether you are a content creator on LinkedIn or not, it is always pushing you to the feed. I think that in my personal experience of LinkedIn, it felt harder and harder to see people's profiles. And I remember when I first got back on LinkedIn last summer after having been off for quite a while, I couldn't find the place to view my own profile because it used to just go there when I logged in and now it goes to the feed. And so for all of these reasons, more and more people are talking about LinkedIn as a space for content creators and therefore LinkedIn as a social media platform. And as a result, the tone and tenor of LinkedIn as a space has really shifted. Instead of going to LinkedIn to update your work experience, share a new job or business accomplishment, or send a message to someone you actually know through your career, now LinkedIn is a space where you go to write a post, do a live, create a LinkedIn specific newsletter, and on the less fun sides, to get a million spammy messages from people trying to cold sell you things. And I don't know that LinkedIn was ever fun, but it definitely didn't used to be like this. It didn't used to feel like a barrage of AI-generated DMs and fakely authentic text posts with the link in the comments to game the LinkedIn algorithm. And at this point, I'm just not into it. I think another factor to the shift of the vibe on LinkedIn has been the development of this uniquely quote unquote cringe voice there. And to me, that voice is what happens when you tell everybody they can be a thought leader without actually making anybody have a thought. And I don't mean to belittle anyone or make fun of people's posts, but I think that LinkedIn has always billed itself as the platform for thought leaders. And when they launched LinkedIn influencers, they had LinkedIn influencers like Bill Gates, right? People who have had some very important thoughts or thoughts that have shaped the world. And I'm not saying we all need to be Bill Gates, dear God. No, thank you. But I think that LinkedIn has just become this kind of pit of people parroting each other's original thought to the point where there's nothing left at the center of it. And I think that's why it feels so cringe, and I just can't do it. So going back to my journey with LinkedIn, I've already told you that I got on the platform in 2010. And I was using it as a resume. I applied for some jobs through my LinkedIn profile. And I would say that throughout grad school and even into starting my business, my account was pretty dormant. I was not doing a whole lot there. And I think that's because I wasn't applying for jobs. And so I wasn't super concerned with cultivating a professional network or a digital resume. But then after I launched Softer Sounds, maybe a year or so into business, I noticed that more and more of my clients and my peers in business were tagging me in things on LinkedIn. And they were sharing a podcast that I had supported them in launching or sharing an event we were doing together. And I just started to get all of these email notifications that I was being tagged in posts. And so I was like, okay, maybe I should check this out. I mean, it's LinkedIn. That's not social media. I can do this. That's what led me back onto the platform in a bigger way, I'd say about a year ago. And I started responding and engaging with people. And eventually I started posting more myself, or at least I tried to remember to post more and to share updates about the business and to congratulate clients on things and just be a little more public in that space about things that were happening behind the scenes at Softer Sounds and with Off the Grid. And to some extent, I think that people who had probably forgotten I existed did see those updates. I definitely saw my profile getting looked at by a professor from college, by my uncle who lives many miles away from me, and by some other people who I would love to be Softer Sounds clients. And I'm glad that they got to see what I was doing. But over time, I just started to dread getting those emails because I didn't want to go to LinkedIn to look at the post. And I started to feel that old feeling of obligation and of performance that I had felt on Instagram. I started to feel like I had to be in this space for my business and I didn't like it and I didn't want to be there, but I had to be there. And that for me was just a huge red flag that this was not going to be sustainable for much longer. And then on May 26th, 2024, I got an email from LinkedIn that said, Amelia, congratulations on 14 years with LinkedIn. And that email told me that my profile had been viewed 352 times, and I had followed 42 members, and my post had gotten 5,269 views. And when I read that email, I logged in, I wrote a nice little goodbye post, and I signed off for good. There might have been a day or two fluctuation in there, but it felt that dramatic to me. It was like, when I got that email, it just felt so crystal clear that this was only going to become more and more and more and more like social media, and I needed to get out. Because I was already seeing the tactics that showed up on Instagram and made it feel so sketchy showing up on LinkedIn. I was noticing that trick I mentioned earlier where everyone writes a post and then puts the link in the comments so that it's not deprioritized by the algorithm, right? I hate that kind of stuff. I'm so against doing things to please an algorithm, and I really didn't like noticing myself even taking up that behavior. And so once again, as I did with Facebook and Twitter and Instagram before it, I logged out for good and opted out. You could still find my profile there if you want. You will see a resume frozen in the year 2024 forever. There is also still a Softer Sounds page because most of my contractors like to link to it on their LinkedIn profiles, and I'm not trying to take that away from them. But I am not going to be active there anymore. It doesn't feel aligned, and I don't want to do it. And what I learned from leaving Instagram is that I don't have to, no matter what the discourse at large might say. And so what the fuck is happening on LinkedIn? Well, they reached 1 billion members and completed their transformation from social networking platform to social media platform. Now, when you go there, you will find all of the same features and tactics that you find on any other social media platform. And if that's for you, I cheer you on. And if it's not, that's okay too. As is true of every other social media platform, there are certainly ways that you can use LinkedIn that deprioritize the social media features, right? You can be on LinkedIn and mostly connect with people you already know and mostly send direct messages to those people and do business in that way. And I definitely know people who are making money through their LinkedIn network, and I cheer them on. But I think that one of the reasons that LinkedIn is working right now is because it is behind Instagram and Facebook in the timeline of early adopter to everybody's on it to total trash fire. And so, like the other platforms we've seen before it, I am guessing it will complete that cycle and eventually it will stop working for getting new leads and connecting with clients and making money there. I could be wrong. I'm open to being wrong always. I often am with many things. But I would say that while I cheer you on, if you are living, laughing, loving LinkedIn right now, I would also always caution anyone that we don't want our business to rely on a single platform for our lead generation or client acquisition. So I've definitely spoken enough in this episode. And now I want to hear, as I said before, are you on LinkedIn? What's your relationship to it? Have you been on there forever, but you haven't logged in for half a decade? Did you never get a LinkedIn because you are a capital A artist and you never needed it? Are you on LinkedIn literally every day and it's brought you a ton of business and you're really happy with it? Literally whatever your experience is, I would love to hear about it. Head to the comments in Substack and leave us a note. What's LinkedIn like for you? And what do you think about my thesis that what has happened is it's gone from being a social networking platform to a full-fledged social media platform? As always, I am extremely grateful that you are a member of the Clubhouse, that you support me and support Off the Grid by paying for these extra episodes. And if you're listening when this comes out, I will be back next week with our August Biz forecast exclusively for Clubhouse members, where I will be sharing exactly how much money I've made at Softer Sounds so far this year, including a breakdown of our expenses, what I've spent that money on, our profit, and what I plan to do with all of that. So until then, I will see you off the grid, off LinkedIn, and in the clubhouse.
Let's go off the grid. Okay. Let's go off the grid. Okay. I know that you really want to put your phone away. Yeah. Let's go off the grid.
Hey friend, thank you so much for tuning in to this free episode that I pulled out from behind the paywall of Off the Grid Clubhouse. If you enjoyed this one and you want to get more super secret behind the scenes episodes from me, head to the show notes or to offthegridclubhouse.substack.com to join our private pod feed, where you will hear episodes like this one every week when the show is off season and twice a month when we're in season. And you can join in those conversations that I mentioned throughout the episode that are always going on in our comment threads. The Clubhouse only costs $5 a month or $50 for the whole year, and it really supports me in continuing to create free episodes of this show as well as the paid exclusives. So thank you again for tuning in, and I hope to see you off the grid and in the Clubhouse today.